Welcome. This is the Master of Social Work Juris Doctorate Dual Degree Program for University of Georgia. I should have looked over the slides again before we started because I don't remember if we have an introduction slide. But I am Allison Haynes. I'm the Admissions and Recruitment Coordinator with the School of Social Work. And I will let Dr. Gibbs introduce himself, and then we'll let Ms. Shipley Henson introduce herself.
Great. My name is Daniel Gibbs. I'm an assistant professor here at the School of Social Work and the coordinator on our side of the JD MSW program, as well as actually a graduate of this program at UGA. And so excited to chat with people, folks I haven't heard from before, and a few folks that I know I've met with in the past. So excited to hear from everybody and be able to hopefully explain a few things.
And I'm Shannon Henson. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions, Director of Dual Degree Programs at University of Georgia School of Law. I'm an alumna of the law school, and my primary responsibilities are JD admissions, JD recruiting, file review, and stuff like that. But I also do try to liaise with our partner schools that we have dual degrees with, such as the School of Social Work, and serve as an additional type of advisor for our dual degree students, so they can check in with me about things like that. But yeah, here to answer some questions about the program and the admissions process.
And we also have one of our current MSW JD students with us, Jediah Jones. Thank you for joining us, Jediah. And she is here when we get to the Q&A portion if anyone has questions about the student perspective, or she may have some firsthand classroom or internship experiences that she can let you know about if you have questions about that. So we're going to introduce UGA School of Social Work and the School of Law. We're going to explore the dual degree benefits, the structure, and the admissions process for each. And our goal is to prepare leaders in law, policy, and in social justice. So first, the MSW program highlights are we're nationally respected. We rank number 20 in overall all the national programs in the United States, but we rank number 10 among public institutions. And our faculty are doing research that's really groundbreaking research and is well known nationally and internationally. We have international research as well. So there's lots of different types of social work, and there are lots of different places you can use social work skills, but the thing that ties us all together as social workers is our values. So our values are really an emphasis on social justice and advocacy, and that is where we kind of intersect with some of the law values as well at the law school. If you have a bachelor in social work, we do have advanced standing options, which would make your path with the MSW JD even quicker than usual. And then we have field placements. We call them practicum placements, internships in very diverse settings.
All right, and I'll talk briefly about sort of JD program highlights. So we're consistently ranked among the top 2 best value law schools by National Jurist. That's taking into account cost and sort of end outcomes like bar passage, job placement, debt, things like that. Overall, we have a really good ultimate bar passage rate. So the ultimate bar passage rate is going to factor in across all jurisdictions at least 2 years after graduation. And so it's nearly perfect in that area. For the class of 2024, we had 95% or more employed 10 months post-graduation. And that's for all JD students. This isn't specific to our dual degree students, but the dual degree students are included within this number. We've had the best bar passage in the state of Georgia for the Georgia bar 12 years in a row. We rank really well with judicial clerkships, and we have alumni all over the place. And so, you know, the degree is recognized in other jurisdictions as well. But of course, Georgia is going to be our biggest placement state. We have mostly Georgia residents matriculating to the program, and Atlanta is a huge market. But then there's also a lot of other markets where someone with the skills that you could gain in this program would be very, very, very important to those communities.
So
I think this is
why can,
me.
yeah, that's you. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So I just to sum those last two slides up, right? I think one of the real selling points for the JDMSW, right, is these are two top programs, right, in the country. And so not only being able to tap into the resources of one of the top law schools in the country, but also one of the top schools of social work, right, which is I think a real draw. Um, but other than that, right, why would you combine these two degrees? I think as we already mentioned, there's a lot of overlap in the values that social workers and lawyers carry around. A lot of the interest in seeking justice and pursuing advocacy for particularly for vulnerable populations and pursuing social justice. I always tell people, so I am a JD MSW, and I talk a lot about how the skills and the knowledge you learn really complement each other really well, right? You learn how to think like, how to work like, how to step into settings as a lawyer and that skill set. And you also learn the substantive knowledge of human and social systems, right? So that practically speaking, when I represented primarily foster kids, I could advocate for them in court. I could do the procedural stuff. I could file the motions, but also I knew what a psychological evaluation was, right? I could read that. I could advocate for what their needs were and sort of speak both types of language. So I think it's a really strong complementary skill set. Um, I think it also sets you up to not just do direct practice, but also to pursue things like policy advocacy, right, which is an emphasis in both programs. I do think in terms of career impacts, one, it can make you a more impactful person, an impactful professional, having those knowledge and skills. It can also give you a little bit of flexibility, right? It's not too uncommon either in social work, professional social work, or in fact in law to say, let me try on, direct practice for a little bit and see how this works. And then you say, hmm, that was not it for me, right? And then trying on other careers. These days, many people have a lot of different career roles and places where they work, and it gives you a lot of options. You can be a sort of law flavored social worker or a social work flavored lawyer, right? In all these different settings. I will also say that when there are these public interest jobs with a lot of applications, your application has more letters than everyone else. So that never hurts. Um, so this is kind of a little bit of what I was already saying. I do want to mention that our graduates, myself included, often do lean towards going into legal practice and that sort of social work flavored law. And so that means going and getting licensed as an attorney, practicing in social services systems, things like that, public interest law. But also, my first job, in fact, out of the program was in public policy, right? So I worked assisting state agencies to leverage the laws and policies in child welfare to do best practices, right? And so it was kind of blending those two roles in a policy setting. Also, I think a huge growing field, mental health and disability law is I think a great fit as well, given the complementary skill sets. So people are often, stepping into state agencies, federal agencies. They become public interest lawyers working for legal aid and public defense. I think family and juvenile courts are a natural fit for folks who graduate with this degree. And I think in my experience, JD MSWs are highly sought after in those settings because you're often doing, law that is actually social work and social work that's actually law, right? So that's often helpful. As well as in the criminal justice world, there's an incredibly rapid growing field of, for example, forensic social work, multidisciplinary teams. I recently heard quite a bit that there's a lot of interest in mitigation specialists, for example, right? These are folks who are diving into the lives of people who have been convicted of capital crimes and arguing for mitigation of their sentences, things like that. And so, there are also a lot of non-traditional paths, which again, I've now pursued myself. and including not only academia where I now sit, but also in nonprofit work, in working in immigration refugee sort of settings, even outside of traditional law and social work roles, becoming leaders in nonprofit settings, as well as folks that are working for policy institutes and things like that. So I'm going to transition back to myself. How does this actually work? So if you are interested in this opportunity and sort of pursuing a career that meets some of those needs, right? That's dual skill set can be really beneficial for. I like to tell people there are sort of 3 doors, right, into this program, and it determines sort of the order of the program of study, how the different puzzle pieces of the 2 programs fit. I will say the clearest, if not the easiest, at least the clearest door is coming in, not being admitted to either program, and you apply independently for admission for both programs at once. If that is the case, you start out your first 2 years as a law student, right? You spend your traditional 1L year, which is an experience you will never forget, I promise. And some of us now work where we did our 1L year and now have to go there and try and not be anxious when we go back to our first year classrooms and things like that. But so you do get to be immersed fully as a law student that first year, right? Which I think is really important. And then year B, we kind of describe them as years A, B, C, and D. Year B is sort of your second year of law school. So again, all law. We are taking a lot of electives. You're also meeting things like your writing requirements, your experiential requirements, things like that. You're taking professional responsibility related courses along with your cohort of law students, right? So you do belong to a cohort, which is great. It is in year C that you then become a social work student, right? And you take the social work classes. Our traditional first year coursework. It's a little more complicated. We're still kind of working out some details for our advanced standing students, how that piece fits in for you. But you do a full year of basically social work, and that includes some of your practicum requirements in that year. And then your final year, year D, is sort of blended. In particular, the blending happens when you are doing your practicum placement and counting that, as well as some experiential learning, whether it's an externship or a clinic at the law school. That's largely where the quote unquote double dipping would happen, right? Is you're counting that experiential learning for both programs. So that's path number 1, right? The traditional path. A really related path is if you are a law student in your first or second year, you can still go through ABCD, right? Which is the other path, right? As a law student, you apply to our MSW program, you get in, and you sort of set on the path of the dual degree program in year A or B. Same order, right? It gets a little messier for our MSW students who are in their first year of MSW and want to become a dual degree student in their second year. Basically, you do year C, and then you do A, B, and D, right? So you do your social work year, and then you do 2 years of law school, and then 1 year of blended. This document is on our website. If you just Google UGA JDMSW, it's the first response, and you can download that PDF if you have any questions about that. But
And
through the course of okay.
Some of the electives are also able to count for both programs, correct?
There's some courses that are pre-approved for cross credit within each program. So like the number of hours are reduced that are required. So normally a JD is 89 credit hours. And then for the MSW program, it is reduced. And then there is a little bit of cross credit as well. So both degrees must be conferred at the same time. You can't start this program and then decide, oh, I just want to do the JD. If you do that, you are going to need to do all 89 credit hours. And if you start with the MSW program, there was a rule in place that it said that we can't give credit for things that you take prior to that. There's an ABA rule in place. The School of Law is still going to adhere to that. So like we can't give you cross credit for stuff that you take before you matriculate as a JD student. But it can absolutely be done. Like that, just because of that, like, Dr. Gibbs is right. It's a little bit trickier, but it's still there. Like it is still a known and available path to this program. I will say, if you do apply to both programs at the same time, you cannot request deferral of the JD program. So if you get admitted to the JD program, we ask that you come during that time, because it has a lot to do with our enrollment management strategy and things like that. You would talk to the MSW program and say, hey, can we talk about deferral? And approach them as to why you're requesting deferral of enrollment into the MSW program. But yeah, it's laid out on the website. So sometimes there's amendments that we need to make because of a change within either program. We both have accreditors we have to answer to. But we try to keep it pretty clear so that you can make the right choices as you navigate the process.
Yep, and I think one thing that's great is once you're on the path, right? Once you do come in one of those doors, one of the real values I think of the program. There's obviously required courses in both programs, right? That first year of law school, that first year of MSW, it's pretty prescribed, right? Although in law school now they do get to take an elective in their first year, which I never got to do. It's so great they get to do that. But once you meet those requirements, you take those main core courses, there's so much room for choosing your own adventure, I think, in this program, right? For how you make the puzzle pieces fit, how you, what practicum or experiential learning opportunities you pursue. There are some reduced elective opportunities, I think, just because of how many requirements you have to meet. But there are electives in both programs, particularly on the law school side, that can really help you pursue and really craft what this JD/MSW will mean for you in your career, which I think is great. Often in a dual degree program, you're kind of stuck on the one path, right? So I think there is a lot of choose your own adventure in this. Right. I'm going to advance out of our program of study stuff. We can certainly come back to that if folks have questions towards the end. And so, I will mention here the sort of what you can expect in the classrooms. So I would say if there's one thing you can expect in the JD/MSW, and Jediah will probably also nod her head here too, there's a little bit of whiplash between the two different programs sometimes, very different teaching methods. In law school, they use what's called the Socratic method, right? Which is a lot of question-based teaching. You do your readings, you are asked about the cases and to identify the different issues, right, in class. One fun thing about when you return to your alma mater as a professor is now I have to not think about the time that our vice provost called on me and I totally bombed in her torts class. But you do have that really active Socratic method. Both programs have smaller seminar classes as well. So particularly once you get to that second year of law school and beyond, and in some of the electives in the MSW program, you have much smaller classes for specialized topics, which can be really valuable experiences. In both programs, you're getting a lot of writing, and writing is a huge skill that our graduates have, including specific writing requirements on the law school side, some larger writing requirements you have to meet, as well as most of our social work classes. A lot of our papers are less exams, which is something you do have on the law school side, and more paper-based, project-based learning. So you do get that, as well as in our practicum setting and experiential learning, you do get exposure to the field, right? So you get not only internships on your own time, right, in the summers and things like that, but also guided practicum and experiential learning experiences during the semester. I will say, other than the extra letters at the end of your name, the one thing that I think our students are most competitive for is to have this degree, you have to walk out with a ton of practical experience and experiential learning, which is it's a huge thing that everyone in the market is looking for, no matter how the market has changed. Everyone wants people that have experience in the field. So with this, I'm going to try not to butcher the law experiential learning requirements. But
I mean,
I
I
may
can
just
hop
turn it
in.
over if that's
So,
okay.
yeah, so like you do, regardless of whether or not you participate in the JD MSW or just JD program, you have a practical skills requirement in the law school. It's not the same. It's not as robust as what the School of Social Work requires. And there's a lot of different ways that you can take care of that practical skills requirement. It's 6 hours. But for someone who is doing this program, you should do experiential learning. You should do a clinic because there's the potential for cross-mogenation. Like there's and also like it's what you want to do. Like y'all are hands-on people. If you're pursuing this, like you want to be serving people, you want to be engaging with these populations. And so of our 18 experiential learning programs at the School of Law, you would want to be looking at like the Wilson Family Justice Clinic or the C's Clinic as sort of, or even like the Community Health Law Partnership, which is doing a lot of immigration work. Like you're going to want to look at those clinics to see like, okay, maybe I'm going to get my practical skills from these clinics for the law school so that I can, again, emphasize all of my experience when I'm talking to potential employers. And so, but then you would also want to talk with your buddies at the MSW program to be like, hey, what's going to be a good partner program for what you're asking me to do over here?
And we do have
Yeah.
students who use their MSW internship hours that are required and embedded into the MSW side of the curriculum. They may do their internship at the C's clinic, and that's gonna double count. So that would count toward those 18 experiential learning. Oh, no, you said programs. However many hours you require of experiential learning, but also count for your social work internship.
Yeah. So like you would want to talk to us to make sure that you are counting appropriately and getting the right credit because again, like you want to make sure you're doing it right. But if you were to participate in the C's clinic, it could be a really robust experience where you're really doing a lot with that clinic and able to have it count for both.
And can you say what the C's clinic is in case anyone
So
doesn't?
the Wilbanks Child Endangerment and Sexual Exploitation Clinic was the first of its kind in the country. And it is aiding survivors of child sexual assault and sexual trafficking in bringing civil claims against their abusers. So, and it's also doing a lot of advocacy work too. So the director of that clinic, who works very closely with the School of Social Work, is speaking a lot under the Gold Dome. I know she's hauled her buns up to DC before. Like they're doing advocacy work in addition to direct client services as well. So there's the whole host of civil litigation experience from there. I know people who didn't even go into public interest who did that because they wanted to be able to tell their employers that they've like argued a motion in court. It's a really remarkable clinic. They try to take a trauma-informed approach, which was a word that I never heard when I was in law school. Recognize that there's potential for secondary trauma in providing those services. Like there's a lot of good stuff happening there to make really just caring lawyers. and if you also have the skills that you learn in the social work field, I think it could make you just a dynamo in that experience. So
Yeah, I was on the phone with Jocelyn, the social worker in the C's clinic today, and even we were talking about just how great of an opportunity it really is for practicing on a multidisciplinary team is a skill set that you have to learn to talk both languages and to work together. And they have legal interns and lawyers and a social work supervisor and social work students, and it's really a great learning opportunity. As well as
interpreters on site too for
you really learn like what practice of this kind of interprofessional law is like. Both there, I know folks have worked also at the public defender's office here in Athens and have gotten some of that experience as well. And there's a lot of really exciting things. It does help that the folks over at the clinics are also just wonderful people and provide some really cool learning opportunities.
And that's here in Athens. I think some people think that law can only be practiced in Atlanta, and that is, and our clinical offices are literally right downtown. They're very closed. There's not a lot of, there's some signage, but not a lot, because we want to protect the people receiving services there. But that's right downtown, so you don't need to add, several hours of commuting to your day if you're participating in those clinics.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of really, I think, it's one of the benefits, I think, of being in a college environment, and with some of the innovation that we're able to do at the university, I think, you don't have to go to Atlanta to experience really innovative, really nationally recognized work, which is great. Um, so I'm gonna turn it over to Allison to tell us a little bit about the MSW side of this equation as well.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't know if I can make this go forward. So you might have to do it for me. So you do have to, I don't guess I put this in writing, but you do have to apply to both schools independently. These programs are only available for the in-person full-time programs on the Athens campus. So I get a lot of people who are interested in the online MSW or Gwinnett evening MSW. Unfortunately, it's not the location, it's the fact that those are part-time programs and this is only available to full-time students. But the MSW graduate application includes your unofficial transcripts from every institution you've attended, even if it was as a transfer, transient, dual enrollment student. 3 letters of recommendation. We ask that at least one be from a faculty member, a previous professor, but if you're fresh out of undergrad, at least 2 should be. We have very specific instructions on our narrative statement. So if you've written an admissions essay for the law school or for any other department, you can't just reuse it. You do need to look up our narrative statement instructions and tailor. It's okay that your goals include JD MSW. You can mention that. It's okay that you are interested in practicing law if that's the case for you, or advocacy, but you do have specific questions about why do you want to pursue the social work route, and it lists the social work values, and it has to be an APA format. You need to submit your resume, any volunteer experience, internships, even big projects or research you've done, include that on your resume. If you think the work isn't related to social work, include it anyway, because in my opinion, I mean, if you've been a bartender, you're learning how to interact with customers, you're learning how to manage tense situations. That's relevant. So I say, if when in doubt, put it on your resume. An application fee. There are limited application fee waivers available. We use the graduate school application, so they're the ones that assess that fee. It's $75 for your first application and $25 for each additional application. We do not require standardized testing for the School of Social Work application. So if you've taken the GRE or MAT for another program and you have good scores, you can submit them. But it's not at all required, and it doesn't count against you if you don't submit them, which is great because you will have testing requirements for the law school and you only have to do one standardized test. Our GPA guidelines are 3.2 for the advanced standing. That means if you have a bachelor in social work. If you have any other bachelor besides social work, our GPA guideline is 3.0 for the School of Social Work. So you will select the Athens campus. We have 3 specializations within the School of Social Work. We have micro, macro, and combined practice. Micro focuses on individuals, families, and groups in diverse settings. Macro is more like program, policy development, administration, supervision, and combined practice. Dr. Gibbs, can they do the combined practice and still fit in the... So you will need to choose either micro or macro for the school if you choose to do the JD MSW, because the combined practice doesn't have enough electives left in it for you to double dip with those. Again, advanced standing is only if you have a bachelor in social work. So our priority deadline is January 9th, 2026. We do recommend that if you're doing the dual degree option that you apply by the priority deadline. And every department sets their own deadline. So you have to look not at what the grad school says. We will have a different deadline than the School of Law, but look at that department, and ours is January 9th. So talk to your references about your career goals. If you use the same recommenders for both applications, ask them to be sure to address the content for each school. You don't want them sending one to the School of Social Work that says this is why they want to be in the School of Law, and vice versa. You want them to make sure that because the faculty committee may say, well, this is for the wrong application, and they don't understand what's going on. Again, I mentioned the narrative statement. Have someone review your statement. If you're a current college student, you can use the writing lab. You can use a trusted individual. Check the graduate application portal for outstanding items. So you submit your references, and then they get an email and have to submit your letter. And you can see when they've submitted it. You can't see the letter, but you can see if they've submitted it or not. And sometimes waiting for the letter of recommendation to come in is what's holding up the application being complete. And there is a way for you to remind your recommenders. International applicants have additional information that the graduate school requires, and so be sure to review that information on the application portal.
All right, JD admissions. So we're a little bit different. We do require a standardized test. There's a slight exception for the UGA and USG scholars. I'm not going to be delving into that here because that's its whole other own webinar. But I will say you can be admitted through UGA or USG scholars and still participate in the dual JD MSW program. That does not prevent you from participating in any of our dual degree programs. So that out of the way. You need to send your official transcripts, even if you're currently at UGA. We can't see, you got to send them in. So all of our application is through the Law School Admission Council, lsac.org. And when I say you send them in, you send them to LSAC. You don't send them to the School of Law. Any law school that you want to apply to, any ABA accredited law school is going to have their application through lsac.org. They do charge what's called a CAS fee. I can't waive that CAS fee for you. However, there are some circumstances under which they can reduce or waive that fee. You would want to check with LSAC about what those circumstances are. I can give you an application fee waiver for our application. We hand those out like candy on Halloween. If you ask us for one, we will give you one, okay? So keep that in mind. We do require a personal statement. Our personal statement is like, attach your personal statement here. It can be anything, it can be everything. My only humble request is that it be double-spaced. I read over 2,600 applications last year. Please make them double-spaced. And that was just me. That wasn't even my whole office. So if they're double-spaced, it means I don't have to go up a grade on my bifocals quite yet. Resume, much like Allison said, make it as long as it needs to be. Even if you didn't have a law job, those service industry jobs are very informative to your ability to handle clients. So if you were a barista, if you were a bar back, if you were a front of house, the law is a service industry, and you've dealt with people at their worst. So please tell us when you were a manager at Chick-fil-A in high school. Tell us all about that. Tell us about your other internships too, but they don't have to be law related. They could be related to maybe people who are CASAs. Tell me about that. I know a lot of people become CASAs when they're in undergrad in a social work program. Fantastic. Yes. Tell us about that. That is kind of law related, but you get what I'm saying. Anything that you've done, those are transferable skills to being a good law student, to being a good grad student, to being an employable grad student, law student, graduate. We require 2 letters of recommendation. If you're getting 3 for social work and one of them could also be for us, we accept up to 4. But we require 2. If you're coming straight out of school, at least one of those should be from someone who's instructed you, but that doesn't have to be the emeritus or chair of your program. It could be a graduate assistant. It could be an instructor. It can be an adjunct faculty member, but someone who's graded your work, talked to you, can say what kind of student you are. We also have optional statements. It could be a UGA law statement. It could be an experience statement, what unique experiences have informed your decision to come to law school, things like that. Anything else you need us to know about? And those could also include like explanations of like bad semesters or a test score that didn't go too well. And then the character and fitness section, I mean, there's a slide later where I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but some of these next slides, LSAT and undergraduate GPA, look at the medians. Our current median GPA is a 3.92 for the 1L class. LSAT is a 169. Those are not requirements. That is just the median. Half the class has at or above, the rest of the class has below. You can have one or the other. You can have neither. You could have both. But you're gonna, like, the review is holistic, but those stats are part of that whole. All right, next slide, please. Again, 2 letters of recommendation. They should be people you know. Resume, not a job, so include everything. All right, next one.
And if I can just jump in a little bit too on the recommenders as well. I will mention on because I know I review applications as well. Picking someone who knows you well is so much better than someone who's prestigious and has no idea who you are. So I think we even explicitly, when we review, have to say, does this reviewer seem to know this person? So,
And don't pick a family friend or,
No.
someone know that's not in a professional capacity. And it's okay to remind them, like if they had undergrad classes and you were a great student, it's okay to reach out to them in advance and remind them, I took this class with you. I really enjoyed when I did this project. I made this grade. These are my goals. I'm happy to like chat with you at some point if you want to before you write the letter.
Here's my updated resume to remind
yeah, give them your updated resume. Those are just some tips for your recommenders. Like reach out to them first and say, can you write me a strong letter of recommendation? But it's okay to remind them who you are when you're making that request.
as someone who writes a lot of recommendations, it does not feel presumptuous when people tell me the things they expect me to highlight for them. It is a helpful thing as long as it's a true thing, right? If it's, hey, I really was passionate about this project I did, and then, they're not somebody who showed any sort of effort or engagement with that project, that's when it becomes a problem. But yeah, reminding what you want someone to highlight is great.
And much like with our transcripts, those letters of recommendation go through LSAC. They don't come directly to the law school. They get sent to LSAC and put together in the CAS report, the Candidate Assembly Service report, that then gets sent to us when you apply. Next slide, please. Okay, character and fitness. As gatekeepers to the legal profession, we are required to evaluate initial fitness for legal practice. What does that mean? You must disclose to us all criminal citations, violations, warnings, allegations, etc. And all university things, basically everything except a parking ticket. Will you telling me that you got caught with weed in your room freshman year keep you out of my law school? No. It's just the act of you disclosing, like, hey, there was a dorm violation freshman year. I got called in by the RA. I had to go do XYZ thing through student conduct. That was the end of it. Perfect. That's the disclosure. You got a moving violation because you were on your phone and not using a hands-free device in Clark County. I see so many of those. Just disclose that it happened, then say I paid the fine or I bought a hands-free device and they waived it. Just go through the steps of disclosing it all. When in doubt, disclose. Every situation is going to be unique. Feel free to explain what was going on. Sometimes there's very good explanations for why things were happening in a particular way, particularly when it comes to academic dishonesty stuff. We're seeing a lot of situations where maybe people didn't realize that they weren't allowed to collaborate in the way that they collaborated. They still got in trouble. They still maybe took an F on the grade. Those are situations where you need to be very clear about what you learned from it, because dishonesty, lawyer jokes aside, is not appreciated in our profession. And so we want to be able to say, all right, this person has been clear and candid with us when they applied, so that we can then say to the bar of whatever jurisdiction that you're trying to join, this person has been clear and candid with us at the time they applied. We believe they are fit to sit for the bar. And then the bar does their own evaluation, which is very thorough. And if they find that something came up that you didn't disclose to us, that could prevent you from being able to practice. So way better to tell us on the front end than 3 years later, after all this law school and all this debt, not being able to practice. So that's character and fitness. Don't freak out about it. Just disclose it. And it's protected information. I'm not like flinging your applications everywhere. Like, it's only reviewed by people on the committee. Okay. I literally was answering these questions today. I am not in Athens right now. I'm in another state where I'm trying to recruit people to come to our law school, and people love to say, how do I make myself stand out? I will speak about this on behalf of the law school, but then y'all can talk about what people should say. Show us your soft skills that you've developed. Show us why you want to come to our school as well. So, those jobs that we were talking about, emphasize the skills that you learned there. And then for your application to the School of Law, I want you to also say, I hope to take advantage of the dual JD MSW program. Since there isn't like a separate application for this program, and there's not really like a button you click, if you just state in your UGA law statement or your, career statement, I want to take advantage of the dual JD MSW program, great. Now I know why you're applying to my school. If I don't have any law experience, no problem. It's not required. It absolutely isn't required. That would be a huge barrier to enrollment if we were requiring people to have legal experience. What about scholarships? We award scholarships on a merit basis. A significant portion of the class gets some form of merit scholarship. I think it's different for grad school programs, but it would be awarded in the years that you are coded as a JD student. So like year A, year B, and year D. If you are awarded a scholarship by the School of Law, you would get it year A, year B, and year D for this program. So, yeah.
So for these questions for the School of Social Work, I mean, it's very similar. We do have a button on the graduate application that says you want to pursue the MSW JD, but I'm not sure the faculty are always noticing it or looking at it. This little button at the at the top of the application.
That information doesn't come to me, I'll tell you that much. So
no,
yeah.
You don't. It's on our application. It does have that button. A lot of times Emma, who works with me, will double check and did you mean this? Because sometimes people just randomly click things on the application, but it's okay to still include that in your narrative statement. And we do have a whole question at the end that's like, is there anything else you want to tell us? And that could be something if you haven't already embedded it into your narrative statement. Ours might be a little bit different for question number 2 because you should have some sort of volunteer experience, some sort of internship experience. Service is kind of at the core of what we're doing as social workers. And so that really will help your application to stand out if you have, even with at clubs, in high school and college, if you somewhere. So please, I would encourage you to do that. What about scholarships? We do have some assistantships and funded training programs available. The scholarships we have are smaller. They're not usually tuition funding, but we do have assistantships at the School of Social Work. They are limited and competitive, but do apply for them. And the application for those is due at the same time as your application to the MSW program. So I'm happy to send you the links for where those are located if you are currently applying. I will try to do that in the chat now while Shannon's.
And I will say this too about the merit or the research assistant, not research, graduate assistantships. There we go. I got there. If you are competitive to get into UGA law, you would be highly competitive for our graduate assistantships, right? So, so definitely apply. They can also really make, if you are awarded one of these, I believe they reduce the tuition to something like $25 or something for your social work year. and you receive a monthly stipend. So that it can really make the program more affordable in a lot of different ways, and give you additional experience, right? You work with a faculty member often on projects that are relevant to your work. They're competitive, but definitely, there's one rule: never rule yourself out of something without applying, right? Apply, because they're a huge resource. I will also say, when it comes to making yourself stand out, the best applications, and this is probably, I would imagine, true for both programs, right? The best applications that I ever read are ones that tell a really tight story of, here is my background, here is what made me interested in what I'm interested in, here is my goal, here's my point A and my point B, and your program specifically is going to help me get from point A to point B, and I'm going to thrive in doing not only your program but also in achieving my goals. I wouldn't necessarily just bank on saying I'm interested in the JD/MSW as being your reason for saying this is why UGA is a good fit for me. That you can't assume that you're going to get with programs, for example, right? But you can say this is something that's drawing you to UGA as a resource that you hope to capitalize on, so you can meet those goals that you've specified. That nice, here's my point A and my point B, and UGA is the right fit for me to get there, is, I think, that can be very helpful.
I will say, when it comes to our scholarships, there is no separate application. Your application to the School of Law is your application for scholarship consideration. And I just dropped our dates and deadlines in the chat.
Yeah, so that is completely different. The School of Social Work, our application, it even asks, are you interested in scholarships? Nobody does anything with that question. Like, I wish it weren't on the app, because you still have to apply for any assistantship or funded training separately. But I do sometimes get the question as well as, like, if they want to do MSW JD, they get into the MSW program but don't get into the law program, am I still accepted to MSW? Yes, the acceptance is completely separate. So you're still accepted, and you can still come to the MSW program, even if you selected dual degree, and you only get into the MSW, you can still come to us.
So do we want to proceed to questions and stuff? Is that
Q&A? Yeah, this is our contact info, so take a picture, or I should have emailed all of you to get the link. So if it's not a question for me, I'm happy to pass it on to who it's for. But we'll take some questions now. You can put them in the chat, or you can unmute, however you're comfortable.
Hi, how you guys doing? My name is Cindy. So I do have a question in regards to tuition for the dual degree programs. So as far as tuition goes, do I have to pay tuition for both programs, or is there a tuition for a dual degree program specifically?
Great question. You are charged JD tuition for years A, B, and D, and grad school tuition for year C. So you're not paying, all of it for all. Yeah, you're coded as a JD student for 3 years, and you're coded as a graduate student for 1 year. And that's how that works. And that's why a School of Law scholarship would cover, if awarded, would be applied to, I shouldn't say cover because it may not cover, but it would be applied to A, B, and D.
And I think this raises a really good point about, why not just do the 2 degrees separately, right? If this is something you want to do, right? I do think the dual degree not only lets you do it quicker, right? The 4 years instead of 5 years to do the programs individually. Doing it quicker also means only getting charged for 4 years of school, right? So, doing it together allows you to graduate quicker. There's less opportunity cost of being in school instead of making money for that extra year, right? And yes, it is just those 3 years of law coded tuition and then 1 year of graduate school. So that does reduce potential debt burden as well.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. That makes a lot more sense, because I was trying to calculate it. So thank you.
What
Hi.
other questions? Oh, go ahead.
My name is Megan, and I actually wrote down a few questions. Um, First off, could you go into depth what benefits may bring to being to getting a bachelor's in social work in undergrad, or even being involved in a pre-law um, program at our current institution? Like, what are some benefits that we can get from either one of those or both when it comes to joining UGA?
So I'll say the benefit to being part of a pre-law organization is going to be basically becoming familiar with what the profession is. It is not required for our application by any means, but it allows you to become more familiar with what's going on. And depending on the nature of the pre-law organization, it could also mean that you hear from speakers, or maybe you have panelists come, or you do special tours. And that's just your due diligence. And I will let Allison and Daniel speak to the benefit of the
I have a
BSW.
question for you though, because I think Megan's question may have been geared toward what major. Is that what you were asking about for law? I think she's
Well,
freezing.
also, there's no required major for law school. If that is where that question was going, any bachelor's degree from an accredited institution is fine for law school. So you could be a BSW and apply to law school, and that's great. Fantastic. We love to see it. Like, you don't have to be a political science major.
Are there specific classes that they're looking for on the application to law
Nope.
school that you've had in
Nope.
undergrad? Okay, cool. I just
Nope.
wasn't sure of that, because I would say the benefit of having the BSW is the shortened time frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can do a master's in social work in only 3 semesters if you have a bachelor in social work, because the bachelor's and master's, if it's a CSWE accredited, that's our accreditation body, Council on Social Work Education. If it's a CSWE accredited bachelor in social work, you're basically already taking some of the freshman classes as a senior in undergrad. I mean, some of the first year MSW classes as a senior in undergrad. You're doing an internship that's been approved and accredited. So instead of repeating that generalist social work internship, you've already completed that and a couple of the other courses, like intro courses. So the benefit of doing the BSW would be the quicker time frame, and using the undergrad funding to pay for the upper level social work classes instead of you having to use graduate funding for that first year of MSW is cost saving.
Yeah, and I will say also, just from a maybe less tangible but also fairly tangible standpoint too, our bachelor's in social work students do practicum education as well. And so that does give you an opportunity to do some work in an area related to this field, that helps you in your application, right? It helps give you some related work experience. And it does, demonstrate your commitment to your goal. If your goal is to do the JDMSW, right, you can say, it does show a little bit of like your background proves that you have a commitment to this area, right? From like just mission standpoint.
Thank you so much. That was very helpful.
And you said did you write down another question? It's okay to go twice in a row.
Okay. I guess this answer's basically already been answered, considering like grades and standardized testing in general. But what are some other things that we could focus on in undergrad? I'm sure lots of service can help us stand out, including, like you said, for our work.
Yes.
But if there's anything else, like,
and keeping those, sorry, my computer is about to die.
Well, while she's working on that, I'm gonna jump in with one here, which is, definitely if testing is an area of anxiety and stress for you, being an undergraduate gives you a time period for you to work on studying and preparing for LSAT, if that is the standardized test you choose to take. That is the GRE, is kind of what it is, but the LSAT is its own set of skills and knowledge. You have to really practice, and a lot of people take preparatory courses or go through a preparatory book. Being an undergrad um, is probably the kindest time in life to do that preparation,
Okay.
compared to doing it sort of like last minute.
Even if it
I
doesn't
wouldn't
feel like it,
start.
because we know you're
Yeah,
busy as undergrads too, but it's a whole different ball game outside.
yeah, you
But
don't need to start,
also,
when you're a freshman or something like that. But earlier the better to begin preparing for that.
and so I would say the other thing is to keep those strong relationships with your professors because they are going to be your recommenders. Because just like the law school, we use a holistic approach, and those can be weighted, strongly as well. Um, I did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, that works. Thank you so much.
Jediah, give us some student insight.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So to give a little background, I'm the current president of the MSW Ambassadors at UGA. Specifically, I tell people to go to the law school all the time, so I'm a JD MSW ambassador. So from my experience, one thing that I was told is show your face, go to the actual law school, go to the school of social work, take a tour. They have options for you to sit in classes sometimes just to observe how it goes. I would take advantage of those opportunities. It'll help you stand out because at least the admissions director, she was like, oh, I remember this person. That's what happened to me. I was late to my tour one day and I bumped into one of the deans at the law school. We had a really long conversation and I was able to start building connections before I even matriculated. And that helped me stand out because they knew who I was in the process of me applying. So I would most definitely look into that.
Yes, I think Jediah could teach a class on networking. She's really good at it, and she's not wrong. Like if you get to know the people there, and even just getting to know the culture of the school, and what they're looking for, and having your name and face in front of them doesn't hurt. In front of us, you can request a school tour through me, um, if you want to tour the School of Social Work.
Thanks for plugging the class visit and the tours, Jediah. Yeah, I just put a link in on how to schedule a visit at the School of Law. We have student-led tours, and I think that's a great opportunity to connect with people and figure out what the culture is like. So thank you for plugging that.
And I think,
You can also
doing some in-person, visits and things like that also really helps you to make that case for like why UGA, right?
Mhm.
If somebody says why UGA and it's some off-the-wall thing that is not really UGA, right? It's not going to count against you necessarily, but if you really do learn the culture, like Jad was saying, and learn the resources and things and see it with your own eyes, it can really help you make that case for, hey, UGA is a great fit for me and my goals.
And you can follow the School of Social Work and I'm sure the School of Law on social media platforms and on different ones because, like, we posted this information session, for example, on the platform. We had a watch party last weekend for the football game at the School of Social Work. So you can even come interact if you're local. But if you're not local, you could at least engage in more online opportunities or see what's going on. Like they'll post if someone made the news at the School of Social Work, then you've seen that professor's face and you kind of know what they're researching, and that kind of gives you a leg up. And I would say, like, research both websites extensively as well. Just do your homework like you would if you were applying for a job.
So I have two more questions. As you all were talking, I just thought of some more. First of all, thank you all for hosting this session. This is like truly one of a kind. Because I've been looking into a JD MSW program for a while now, and like this is like the first school that has actually hosted something that is combined like this. So at least in the ones that I've been looking at. So thank you all. I forgot to say that in the beginning. But as far as like Alison, you had mentioned that when you're applying to MSW, you need some social work experience, or at least that is preferred.
Or volunteer is fine. Volunteer experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so volunteer experience. So I know, so I guess what would be considered within those realms? Because, for example, I graduated undergrad back in 2023 at the University of Kentucky, and I've been working full time as an immigration legal assistant now, but I also volunteer as a court appointed special advocate slash CASA.
So all
But
that sounds amazing. That's great.
okay,
You're good.
okay.
You're good. Yeah.
Like that's
No,
more
yeah,
than
I
a lot of
just-
people have.
I wanted to make sure because like I know some programs wouldn't consider like a legal assistant as part of social work. You know, others do. So that's why I just wanted to make sure. And then as far as like, you know, the micro and macro specializations, right now, I'm going to keep an open mind, but right now I'm more fascinated in the micro or the macro specialization. And I was wondering what kind of curriculum is in that macro specialization.
So I can send you the curriculum, but also I just want to, oh, do you have it? Great.
Are y'all
I
able to see
will
that?
I will point out that if you do the macro, is it geared toward macro usually anyway for this program of study, or does it? No, you
I
have
don't.
both. I see both. I see that
You can
one's on the
be.
left and one's on the right.
Yep. So micros on the left and macros on the right. I will say, all of the generalist education is exactly the same in the School of Social Work, right? So if you go to your
Except one thing I want to say is on the previous page, talk to your your advisor at the School of Social Work to make sure if you think you ever want to become licensed as a social worker, which can have benefits and give you a lot more opportunities within the social work realm, if you want to have that versatility, make sure that you would take the assessment and psychopathology class because that is a requirement to take the clinical social work exams where you could have additional job opportunities. So I didn't want to interrupt you, but I've heard Catherine, the main advisor, say that multiple times to people.
Yeah,
Go ahead
yeah.
with that.
And
To
Jediah,
add on to, sorry, I'm just so used to raising my hand like a student. But the thing I would most definitely add on to that is I'm combined, so maybe I'm a little bit biased saying this, but I think you get the most bang for your buck going the combined route. My generalist year at the School of Social Work, I was at a placement that was more macro leaning, but I was able to kind of get a little bit of micro experience through my external experiences. I started out as a law student, so when Dr. Gibbs was talking about, you start off as a law student and then you apply into the School of Social Work, that's the path that I took. So before I matriculated, I had experience working at the public defender's office. I did work at the C's clinic for a semester. And I also worked under a judge for a couple summers. So I already had a little bit of a background. So me going in, I knew I wanted to do macro, but I also wanted to keep my options open. So I did combined. So you'll most definitely get the best of both worlds. There might be instances where if you have a placement and the first one might be more macro leaning, you might decide, okay, well, based on this, I kind of want to do a little bit more micro. Let them know and they'll adjust that for you. My first generalist year, like I said, I did a macro place setting. And now for my specialization year, I work at a private practice and I have a caseload of a couple clients that I see privately. So it's literally up to you. I'm just saying from personal experience, maybe looking to combine if possible.
And I will, like Dr. Gibbs was saying, the generalist year is the same. And so even though we have the specialization year, this first year, you're getting a little bit of both. Even if you're micro, you're still going to hear about policy because it informs what you're doing on an individual and group level. And same for if you're in macro, you're going to hear about what's going on the practice side because again, it's really a false separation. It's just which one are you focusing on a little bit more.
Yep, and I think that brings in the sort of choose your own adventure element of this, right? Where I do think once you start trying to fit all the pieces together, between law school electives and higher level courses and some of the social work electives and higher level courses, you can really sort of craft exactly what you want, whether it's called micro or macro or not. And I think that's
And to add on to that really quick, we do have a certificate in nonprofit management and leadership. I am getting a certificate as well, and that's through the nonprofit section of the school. And they do have a really good macro basis on their courses. So that's also something to look into.
Yep. I think you customize it based on your goals and what best need to for sure. We probably have time. I mean, maybe for one more. I want to be able to respect what folks' time is because we're technically, I think, only going to 6:30. Is that? Or are we going to 7?
I don't remember.
We were going to 6:30.
In a week.
Yeah. It's dinner time soon. But
Right.
yeah, if anyone has maybe one more question, I'm happy to answer that.
Hi, I had one question. I'm a first year MSW, and I know it was mentioned that it's a little bit more complicated. I'm still very interested in pursuing the JD track as well. I just want to know how that looks like for someone who's already in the C year, technically.
So you're going to want to apply as early as possible. I don't know if you've started to look into the JD application yet, but I would encourage you to put yourself in a position where you could be applying by February. In a perfect world, you would apply early binding, and that deadline is December 1. You probably won't be able to take and register for the November LSAT at this point, nor should you take it if you haven't been preparing for it. But you're going to want to see if you can register for that January LSAT and start preparing for it, and then go ahead and get your application in as soon as possible.
Yep. And this is kind of why I always say this road it's a little bit tricky just because of some of those timelines, right? You just kind of, it moves fast. So, and, I will say this, right? In order to make the dual degree work, that's the timeline, right? There's nothing that prevents someone, for example, who graduates from our MSW program to then apply to law school, right? And get both degrees through a means other than a dual degree. That's certainly possible as well if those timelines don't work for people who are in the MSW. In fact, I think there are several law students who are over at the law school right now who recently graduated from our MSW program. So, that's the other door, right, is to do them separately, although you can't, fit them all together in the same way.
Thank you.
Well, I think that is it in terms of time, but I think I've dragged a window here. Our contact information is here. I'm always happy. I know I've actually chatted with several of you already. I'm always happy to sit down and have a more one-on-one conversation with people about their interests and strategies to pursue this as the next step. So do feel free to reach out to me anytime. But otherwise, thank you all for coming. This is it's great to hear from folks. And if you're listening to this as a recording after, the offer is still the same. Feel free to reach out to us and let us know if you have any questions.
Yes, thank you for coming. Thank you.